the country of Cuba under the Command Economic System, presented by Group 3.
Cuba has a command economy, which means the government controls most of the country's resources and businesses. The name Cuba comes from the Taino word for land. Columbus discovered the island in 1492 and first called it Juana. In 1959, the Cuban Revolution brought communism, changing the country in many ways. Today, Cuba's language, food, art, and especially music shows the country's unique culture.
Tensions reaching a boiling point in Cuba. Hundreds of people participated Sunday in a rare public protest amid a worsening economic crisis that has left everyday Cubans without enough food, electricity, or medication. Cuban-run TV showing people flooding the streets of the island's second-largest city, Santiago de Cuba. Demonstrators seen chanting for electricity and food, as some Cubans have experienced power outages for more than 18 hours a day.
Crisis description. The first one is economic recession. After several years of decline, Cuba's economy is now significantly less than it was. The cause of these are the ineffective and unproductive state-run businesses dominated the deeply ingrained Soviet-style system. It has undeveloped markets, prices that are out of line, little competition, and no real motivation for growth or productivity. The second one are the inflation and poverty. Wages are staying the same while the cost of food, gasoline, and energy is rising rapidly. Cuba's state-controlled economy has long had structural flaws that had led to the country's current economic crisis, which is characterized by high inflation and growing poverty. And the final crisis is the food shortages. Extreme poverty and hunger are on the rise, and many Cubans are unavailable to meet their basic necessities. The cause of this is due to high inflation, a sharp decline in gross domestic product, lower government revenue, and limitations on private agriculture are some of the factors causing this, which makes it challenging to maintain the required food supply.
Full-year GDP growth in Cuba decreased to negative 1.90% in 2023 from 1.80% in 2022. Inflation rate in Cuba decreased to 14.37% in July from 14.75% in June of 2025. Inflation rate in Cuba averaged 27.50% from 2005 until 2025, reaching an all-time high of 77.30% in December of 2021 and a record low of 0.80% in December of 2008.
The coffee in Cuba, also known as Café Cubano or Cuban Espresso, is one of the popular products in Cuba because of its rich, strong dark roasted coffee that is brewed under high pressure like espresso style. The beans used on the coffee came from the mountain of Sierra Maestra in Cuba.
Coffee from Cuba or Café Cubano. It's a highly prioritized goods because of its cultural importance.
Most of the coffee beans used are grown in the eastern mountains of Cuba called the Sierra Maestra. The coffee cherries are usually picked by hand, and to ensure quality, only ripe cherries are picked. The process of making it is a long one, which makes it more special because of the rich and strong flavor of the beans or the coffee itself. It is produced for the locals in Cuba as coffee is part of their daily life, and for international markets as the coffee is a high quality, making it part of the country's cultural identity, and it promotes Cuba's good image.
How does Cuba have a command economic system? What makes the country being under the command economic system? A command economy is an economic system where a central government makes significant decisions about production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services, rather than a market forces. Cuba's economic structure is primarily a planned economy, with significant state control over businesses and government of Cuba having significant influence in the market of the country. Cuba's economy is centrally planned as the government controls most businesses and makes critical decisions regarding production and distribution and pricing rather than relying on supply and demand. How does this system respond to economic challenges? Cuba's government faces food shortages and rising import costs. Despite issues like insufficient production, lack of foreign currency, fuel crisis, and delays in distributing ration goods, they maintain the state-subsidized libreta, allocating scarce foreign currency for essential imports and imposing price caps on basic products to mitigate inflation. However, these measures are costly, inequitable, and sometimes delayed. Cuba's command system addresses economic challenges through continued food rationing, import subsidies, and price caps. However, these strategies are expensive, unequal, and frequently implemented with delays. Proposed solution about economic recession. According to critics, policies including lowering state payrolls, giving businesses more independence, and more permit private sector activity were intended to solve inefficiencies like low productivity and the gap between wages and growing prices. These adjustments are anticipated to provide stronger economic growth in the country. Cuba is responding to the recession by cutting state payrolls, increasing the private sector activity, and allowing businesses more independence to enhance productivity and economic growth.
Controlling inflation can be a real help by simplifying currency exchange to lessen black market prices. In addition, by controlling inflation, it can stabilize the price of essentials like food, electricity, and gasoline. Improving governance can be a really big help as well, as it can use better the resources and it can avoid corruption, as the resources can be used for healthcare, education, and food programs.
Solution for food shortages. Isa sa solution para sa food shortages ay ang ginagawa ng World Food Program or WFP. Meron silang short and long term solution for food shortages. Sa short term ay dinidistribute nila ang pagkain sa mga tao, lalo na sa mga bata at senior. Long term naman ay nagpo-provide sila ng training at gamit para sa farmers para ma-improve pa ang quality.
Cuba's economy faces problems like slow growth, food shortages, and inflation. The government controls most of the economy, which limits the growth of private businesses. To improve Cuba's economy, suggestions such as encourage private businesses to help the economy grow, improve farming to solve food shortages, make currency exchange easier for trade and business, and lastly, use resources wisely to reduce poverty.